Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome to another FIREDUP Casey episode. I'm your host, Zeke Rondanga, and I'm here today with my co-hosts.
Z, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. How you doing today?
I'm great. I'm fantastic.
Are you excited for the episode today?
Of course. I'm always excited.
Yes, we're going to talk money. So
Yes.
I'm going to tell you we're going to talk money. But the man having the house today is another legend from KC. He is the Vice President of Enterprise Bank. Please help me make welcome, Mr. Mark Basola. How you doing, sir?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're looking fresh. You're looking fresh.
I had to bring my A game because I knew it was on your show. I didn't know I'd have also a fashion designer with us. So I'm glad I at least went from a C maybe to a B level.
Yep.
You definitely went to A plus. But for those who do not know who Mark Basola is, give them just a brief bio.
Sure.
Your journey of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. I'll try to keep it brief.
Yes.
I'm not from Kansas City,
Okay.
But I feel like I'm an adopted child of Kansas City.
Yes,
I grew up
same here.
And it's arms wide open. This wonderful community. We'll talk more of that, I'm sure. Grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
Went to school in Indiana. I did Teach for America for 2 years in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, actually, which is a cool experience. My kids, hopefully they learned a lot. I learned a lot in that experience.
Yes.
I realized I didn't want to be a teacher. And the nice thing about that is every job I've had since then, it's easy.
Wow.
Every job I've had. And I graduated in 06, which was a great job market. Did 2 years in Teach for America, and then 2008 happened. And it was kind of in a way similar to 2020 in that there was a huge market disruption. Hard to get a job, especially in finance. Banks had a lot of issues. A lot of people were laid off.
Exactly.
Big companies went under. And I was like, I want to be an equity analyst on Wall Street.
Right.
I think that's what I want to do.
Yes.
And I would talk to these companies like, we just fired half our analyst department.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Wow.
so you're not hiring?
Right.
Isn't that more space now?
Right.
I'm here. I'll get coffee. It'll be great. That was not in the cards. At that point, my wife and I had a child. We were living with my in-laws in Milwaukee, which was, all things considered, not a terrible experience. But I wanted to get out of my in-laws. So got a job at Barnes & Noble, which was a ton of fun. I will tell you, I like books. I like people.
Yes.
And it was a cool environment to work in, but it wasn't going to make ends meet. So I got a job at a bank as a personal banker at a call center.
Okay.
I never meant to be in banking.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
accidental.
No
No. I didn't study philosophy. I didn't study finance. I studied philosophy and political science.
Wow.
Okay.
People say, well, what did you want to do with that? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Why not?
My parents said study finance, and so I said, I'll show you. And now I'm in finance.
Yes.
Although I will say there's nothing I do that is rocket science.
Yeah.
Anyone who tells you what we do is complicated is...
I mean, it's a lot of numbers. To be
Yeah.
honest.
There are a lot of numbers. So, I mean, you got to be
Yes.
comfortable working with math.
Yeah.
But I tell you, most of it's on a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet.
Hey,
Yeah, I mean,
it's my type
Excel
of
is
thing,
really easy.
yeah.
So started working for a bank at a call center, got into the commercial side, which means I'm working with business owners.
Okay.
And that's been a wonderful experience. Moved here in 2012 because the bank I was at was bought. They needed help here in Kansas City, so I moved my family here. My wife loved it. Moved down to Prairie Village, where we've been ever since, and fall in love with Kansas City to the point where people would ask us, "Would you ever go back to Milwaukee or from Chicago?" I'm like, "No.
Really?
Yeah.
Why would I leave?"
Right.
It's got everything we want in this community. It's a tight-knit community. There's only
Awesome.
2 degrees of separation from everyone.
Exactly.
People want you to succeed.
True.
In general, you reach out to meet people, and
Right.
they want to meet.
100%.
They want to get to know you. They
Yeah.
care about your story and your
Right.
background. So that's been so powerful for what I do, especially
Yeah.
where I'm trying to meet business owners and learn about what their hopes and dreams are and what they're doing with their business.
Right.
Couldn't do it like I do it here in other environments.
Awesome. That's great.
So commercial banking is kind of the career I fell into, and every place I've gone, I've found ways to progress and learn more and get more responsibility and to really be more myself.
Exactly, 100%.
That's been, I will say, finding a bank that matched kind of, lets me be me wasn't the easiest thing because, banking's an old institution and people have ideas of how it should be done.
Right.
But I found a good place, so I'm loving what I do.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So let me ask you this, because you were a teacher, right?
I was.
What were you teaching, and what would you say you learned from teaching as helping you as a banker?
It helped me as a banker. So I was teaching 8th grade math and science.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I studied philosophy and political science. 8th grade math and science is, I can relearn the material. High school, that'd be a bit of a stretch for me. Although that's one of the positions they have problems filling, honestly, is the math and science in high school. Huge demand for the STEM teachers. What I learned that I apply to what I do today, how to
Having
listen.
a bunch of kids running around.
Patience.
I was gonna say that requires so much multitasking.
Oh, yeah, I'm
like,
sure.
and I'm not good at that necessarily.
Yeah.
I can focus on one thing.
Yes, yes.
But when you got 24,
That's a lot.
and the kids know that you
Yeah.
can't focus on, and they're like, Mr. Basola, and they're looking around like, they're like, how did you just miss that? He hit me. I'm like, slow down. I
Right,
can't do
right,
that.
right.
I learned how to really listen, I
Yes,
think, to
yeah.
understand my
Okay.
students. Because once you actually understood their story and their background, where they come
yeah.
from, and knew that you were vested in them.
Right.
Because there were a couple marks, like they're like, we've had a bunch of teachers come in like you who look like you, and they stay and they leave, and maybe they leave after 3 months.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So who are you? Are you going to actually stick it out?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So really building rapport.
Mm,
By
okay.
listening with each of these kids, that mattered to them, and then they were more invested in the class.
Right.
Yeah.
That was crucial, and that's a skill I apply to the business owners I work with on a daily basis, is
That's
being interested in them and their businesses.
That's awesome. I feel like business and finances are like go together. That's really important. A lot of business owners need to understand that. What is your role when it comes to helping business owners, with their business and projecting and increasing their sales?
Yeah, so we want to get to know them, who they are as a person, what their hopes and dreams are, and then figure out, how do we help them get there? And there's a couple ways banks do it. The first and foremost and the obvious one is capital.
Right.
Exactly.
If they need
yes.
capital.
Right.
We've got a lot of it, and a lot of banks do right now. It's actually, we're going to talk, a lot of businesses have problem with supply chains. We've got a lot of supply right now. Our challenge is to put the money out the door.
Right.
So we talk about, how can we help you make your dreams come true? And part of that's capital. Part of it's connections, I will say, though. A lot of what I had a meeting yesterday with a business owner down in Lewisburg, and there wasn't any lending need directly, but he said, hey, I need someone who can help me. I need an accountant who can help me with this specific problem I have. I'm like, I got 3 people I can introduce you to.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
He's like, maybe interested in selling the business at some point. And he's like, I'd like to meet someone who would be interested in buying, who can maintain the culture I have. I'm like, I know 2 or 3 people
Wow.
you should talk to.
Yes.
So having that network and being able to put that to work for my friends, for my clients, for my prospects, for the community, is a huge part of what we do.
Right.
It's connecting the dots, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
I want to ask you this because I think this is important because through learning about the history of Kansas City, I know that there is a disparity when it comes to the Black community living on the east side of Truce.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the history of how those areas were built infrastructure-wise, finance-wise.
Right.
And when it comes to your bank, Enterprise Bank, what do you think? Do you know the history that goes back then, or what do you guys do? You would think to be able to kind of like create like equal access for everyone to get the funding, because a lot of people need funding, but they don't even know how to get it.
Yeah. So a lot of challenges exist, particularly in
Yeah.
Kansas City, that is a segregated community.
Yes.
As a bank, we have a couple of initiatives we're working on to try to break down barriers and make sure that everyone has access to capital.
Yes. Okay.
And I can go into detail. A couple of these.
Just get a little bit in detail.
Yeah,
because I want to hear it.
education
wanna
is
know.
first and foremost what we're all about.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
education, and that's making sure that our employees are educated and that they have ways to grow up at the bank. So we have a gateway to banking. So
Yes.
a lot of people enter banking because, hey, a job at a teller, entry-level position. And they say, hey, I kind of like this. So we've got education programs that, hey, if you want to get to be a branch manager, to progress in the bank, there are ways to do that. We want to make sure that people who want that have an access to that opportunity.
Yeah,
So that's one
okay.
program we have as a bank. Enterprise University is something we do that's a really neat program. It's free to anybody to attend these courses. They used to be in person pre-COVID.
Yeah,
And
pre-COVID,
One
yeah.
of the interesting things about COVID is now it's all online.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
whereas we can only have 20 people in attendance, now we can have hundreds.
Right. No
More.
limit.
Yeah, and so what we're doing with that platform is we're creating a platform, kind of like you've created a platform with FIREDUP. We're creating a platform
Yes.
for friends, partners, great leaders in the community to help other business owners learn, or their employees.
Yes.
Right.
So there's courses on HR, marketing, sales, technology, IT, finance, and just personal wellness.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
got people presenting on that. And we'll find great people in the community
Okay.
and give them that platform. So we've had people like Mike DeMayo of Crown CFO talk about cash flow, which for some people is really
Yes,
fascinating. Some
yes.
people it can be a little tedious. We've had Grant Gooding.
Yeah.
Have you met Grant?
Yeah, I haven't met him, but I've heard of him.
So
Yeah,
Grant talked
yes.
about brand psychology,
Yes.
and very fascinating. Like every time you talk to him, you learn something.
Wow.
So we give him or Katie Lord, who works with him, on donor motivation and giving for not-for-profits.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
So that's again, that's free to anyone who wants to attend. It can be for other bankers if they wanted to attend. You know, we're looking to make rising tide raises all boats, and we want to make the community better. We want our business owners to have more education so they can be better business owners and help their employees too. So that's a big pillar of what we do. I'd say DEI is a big part of what we do. We want to make sure that our employees have kind of affinity groups. So they make sure that they know that, hey, bankers don't just look like this. They can look like other things. And that's a subtle way that access can be challenging, quite honestly.
Exactly.
I mean, you think about just like promotion within a bank. You're like, well, who do I know? That's who I want to, you know. But is your network really truly equitable? Has it been built out? Do you know people who maybe don't live where you live or belong to your country club? You know, so that's part of the game as well. Is making sure we got a resource group for all different types of employees, so they have connections and they can have communication with the bank, so that they know that, hey, this is a place for everyone. Fundamental. And I will tell you, as a bank, we've had some success in lending into Truce community along the Truce corridor, doing real estate development, because we've had some bankers who got to know the community and the business leaders in that community. If they hadn't forged those relationships, probably wouldn't be putting money there. It's so crucial that we're doing that we're knowing people throughout Kansas City, not just Johnson County or Wyandotte. We're talking to people all over Grain Valley, Lone Jack, North Kansas City. We want to have connections, friendships, really, all over the community. Now, we're a bank, so we lend money, obviously. Community development is a huge part of what we do. So we have 1.5 billion assets. We're a $13 billion bank. We were 10 billion.
Money.
We're growing. We're a growing institution. We're not huge, but we're growing. To give you some kind of framework, Commerce, I think it's 26, UMB is 24. B of A is like 3 trillion. In assets. So, you know, there's mega big banks, money center banks, there are community, like regional players, and there are local banks. But it's important that you have a diversity of these banks. I really think that's important. You've got really good regional players, like I've mentioned, and you've got some smaller banks too, because those banks will do a better job of filling in different needs.
That's great.
So we 1.5 billion in assets are in community development, which means new market tax credits, which are tax advantage loans in certain tracts of the community that have been designated as, hey, these are low income census tracts. We want to make sure money's being directed into these neighborhoods. Then there's just small business lending. There's other types of lending into these communities. So we want to make sure we're putting our money where our mouths are.
That's great.
As a bank.
So I'm sure our listeners are wondering, what's the process as a business owner, you know, coming to you, or what resources do you have, you know, is it certain businesses you work with, commercial, kind of give us an understanding of that. We're
looking to work with good people.
Awesome.
It's plain and simple. At the end of the day, we want to work with good people. Many people will first interact with the bank because of a branch. Maybe it's our branch at 18th and Main. They'll walk into and say, hey, I need access to capital. And the branch manager will say, so how much do you need? What's your business? Help me understand. And they'll direct them depending on the size of the business and where they need to go. I'm working with businesses that are usually anywhere 5-10 million revenue and up. Typically that conversation doesn't start there. But a lot of small businesses, you know, that's where it's going to start, and the branch manager can sometimes handle it. They'll get them in touch with a head of business banking as well, who can help. And we're kind of, you know, I'm coming across opportunities that are in their area, so I'm like, all right, come talk to Jess Nollet. Let's go talk to her, and she can help you on the business bank. Or this is Mike Hoover at the branch. He can help. And often they're saying, hey, this is more of a commercial opportunity. Talk to Mark Basola and see what we can do.
That's great.
So a lot of meetings, getting to know people, figuring out how can we help, what's the story, and how do we help these businesses thrive.
Awesome.
And I think that's like a change in a way that a bank has been run compared to what we've had maybe a decade ago, where it's just restricted in this one area, and not expanding to see who else is out there who needs help. You know, and I think that's important, being able to venture out to ask, what can we help with, and not just saying, I know 1-2 people, that's who we're going to focus on, right? So has it been an intentional thing for your bank to do that, or is it something that started recently?
It's a good question. Our bank, I think, is only 32, 33 years old. But there is a moral obligation, might be too strong, but for lack of a better, to make sure you're extending credit to the entire community, that you're out networking with everyone, and that you're not just staying in your neighborhood. So we are very intentional about that as a bank to make sure we're getting to know everyone in the Kansas City community to how we can be a resource to help the community thrive. And that's what it's about in the end, is we want to have a thriving community. I want Kansas City to be the best community it can possibly be.
Right.
Ooh, let's go.
Exactly. And we play a role within the banking that's very important. But beyond that, again, we want to make sure that good people know good people. And so that way we all win.
Right. What are some things or struggles that you've seen business owners when it comes to finances?
There's, you were going to maybe talk about the economy later, but right now the struggle is real for business owners. And you know, I love getting on the phone with a business owner and they can be real with you, because that's how I learn. You know, by hearing their stories. But right now, it's, can I get access to talent is one of the main challenges I am hearing. It's a competitive job market, and it's a strange job market too. I came across an article in the Wall Street Journal that said there's about 4.3 million workers who were there before COVID who are no longer engaged in the market. And it's like, where did they go? Some of these were early retirees. They just said, we're out. You know, we've had enough. I'm tired. I've got enough. I'm ready to, you know, hang it up and I'll live frugally from now on, but I don't need any more of the work environment.
Exactly, yes.
But then you've got people who've struggled to enter, and I don't have any answers as to why, but there are a number, like blue-collar workers haven't re-entered in the way you'd expect. And that's a surprise to me, because there's a lot of opportunities in the blue-collar sector. You hear about the need in the construction industry. You hear about, you can't get truckers right now. You know, where we have a problem with logistics and getting stuff from the coasts to anywhere. Usually it's on a truck. Sometimes it's on a train, but usually on a truck. But there's a shortage of truck drivers. And then women have not re-entered the workforce in the amount that you would expect. And there's got to be some factors behind that too that are challenges. But that's first and foremost an issue that we're seeing for our business owners, is getting talent.
So my question is, how has your role or your position shifted with business owners and your connection in the midst of COVID? I know that's struck in
2020 was a crazy year.
It was.
In so many ways. For the business owners I work with, at first in March and April, they were just like trying to process what is happening. What is happening, and where will this go? Because it wasn't clear. I mean, if you take what happened from mid-March to mid-April and you extend that through the rest of the year, we're all out of business. You know, there's no revenue. I had clients, their revenue went to zero. That's scary. So they were just kind of talk that through, like, what do I do next? How do I adapt? Where can I find revenue? And so as a bank, we're sitting there talking to our clients, listening, providing ideas, providing connections, like I said. That's a part of what we're doing. And then it became really real when the Paycheck Protection Program got rolled out in April, May, and we were basically extending grants that became equity into these businesses for them to continue to operate and not have to lay off employees. And that was crazy. But it was a neat experience in that, you know, our clients, they were coming to us, prospects who knew us. Maybe their bank wasn't being responsive. This is actually an area where smaller banks shine. And big banks, they were able to catch up. And everyone at first said, you know, small banks are going to go out of business with this PPP thing. That was what I had read. There was big concern that the big banks would figure it out really fast. And small banks, but that's not what happened. It was the smaller community players that really filled in and ran circles around the mega banks. And again, that capital was vital to those businesses to continue to make sure they didn't have to lay off employees. And that made 2020, you know, at that point then things started to stabilize, revenues stabilized, and people said, okay, there's light at the end of this tunnel. So that was part of the role we played then, was just, man,
I mean,
we're there for
in
you.
the outlet, for sure.
It was definitely a dreadful year. And speaking of the economy, like we're talking about, I think I saw a news yesterday, and it was talking about how there's about over 75,000 Americans who quit their job just because they're like, I'm not going back anymore. 2020.
Crazy.
They're afraid of like not having job security, because 2020 kind of opened everyone's eyes like, yo, I could be laid off in a second. And I think I don't know where the economy is moving in towards that, but what do you think would be like when it comes to that? What is your thoughts on that? And like, do you think there's a solution to that, or how can we go about that?
Treat your employees well.
You
don't have a business, you don't have employees, so take care of that. Some of the businesses I admire the most, frankly, view their client almost as secondary to their employee, because they realize if we make our employees happy, they're going to take better care. Now, that's usually in the service industry, but knowing how to take care of your employees and create a great environment where they want to show up and they know that their employers behind them,
Right.
that allows them to really take care of the client.
Right.
That's amazing. So I'd say take care of the employee first. Obviously, I think a lot of business owners are finding that they need to pay more to be competitive,
Exactly.
just because there's talent is scarce.
Oh yeah,
Supply and
it's
demand.
definitely went up.
So I mean, I think there's a lot of cries for higher minimum wage, and some states started to enact it. Now the market's caught up, and now it's being exceeded. I mean,
Right.
I have manufacturers, distributors. They're talking $18 an hour starting salary, sign-on bonuses.
Wow.
Right.
So that's kind of what I've heard and what I'd say.
Because I think too, with there's a lot of fear of recession, I would say, when it comes to the gas prices going up.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on the economy? Because I feel like the stock market is dreading right now, not in a political way at all, but more in an analytic, financial way. You say.
Yeah. So I'm of two minds right now. We're at all-time highs in the market. Bitcoin just hit an all-time high last week, which is
oh wow, okay, it's back up.
It's back up
after Elon Musk almost trashed it.
Oh yeah, no, it's stronger than ever.
Yeah, okay.
Energy prices are starting to soar as a major concern. Inflation is a real thing.
Yes, inflation, it is. Yes.
We're seeing it in little ways. You see it in big ways. Home prices continue to climb. Is going to be an issue. I mean, affordability of housing is a problem we're going to talk about in the community.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors. I mean, what happened in 2020 is the Fed basically started just putting tons of money into the market, pumping up asset prices in any way it can, and that stabilized things. But there's a price to pay, because if there's a lot of money, inflation can follow. It should follow. I think that was one of the head scratchers of the past years. Where's the inflation? And finally, I think in the past month, I think it was maybe 5.6% for the month. I mean, now we're seeing inflation really kind of kick into gear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Will it tamper down? A lot of the economists think, actually, no, this is a temporary increase. But if it's not,
so how does
problem?
Yeah. So how does that work with the job wages? They are going up. Is that something that you think is going to stay, or want to change? How does that help with employees and stuff like that? Like, how is that? I'm just worried.
It's $1 million question. Is you're asking, how does this play out?
Right. Yeah. What's the end game with this?
What is end game?
Yeah.
I don't have a great ready answer for you.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on
that? Keep your head on a swivel.
Right.
Kind of what I say to business owners is, pay attention. Keep talking to your peers, your friends, other business owners. What are they seeing? And read a lot of articles and talk to economists and people who are kind of focused on the data as well.
Right.
And factor that all into how you're going to operate. I think every business owner has to have in their mind, if they don't have an actual budget, which ideally they do, they have to have something in their mind of, if this happens, what do I do?
Right.
If inflation kicks up, do I increase pricing? Do the cost of inputs, do the cost of my goods go up or not? I mean, and that's the other thing we mentioned labor, but the other problem we're having right now, my business owner having, is cost of goods, just getting inventory.
Skyrocketing,
I mean, getting some equipment, especially if it's made in China, if it's made coming through the port of LA, it's tough. So I'd say, keep reading, keep your eyes open, because whatever happens, it's going to come fast. I mean, it's possible we see it just kind of slowly steady.
Right.
But it's also possible things could get rocky. And at some point, we're due for a recession. We had one with COVID, but that was what they call an exogenous one. That was because of outside factors affecting the market. The fundamentals were decent back in 2020.
And I mean, back in 2020, a lot of people thought the market was going to crash, but funny enough, a lot of companies are really good. Amazon was.
Oh yeah.
Tesla
definitely.
took off.
Chipotle.
Definitely.
Within the restaurant, I kept Chipotle afloat myself and my family.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people were well positioned for it. Some businesses were in a great place to thrive.
DoorDash, Uber,
even Zoom.
They were all Zoom
technology businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the future, right?
Right.
Because that's where things are going more.
Right.
But this might be the last question for me.
Sure.
But, I want to ask this. I consider myself at the tail end of a millennial, because I was born in '95, which is the last year for millennials. But I see myself at Gen Z.
I'm at the front end.
Yeah, you're
83.
So you're the front end.
Yeah,
so
vanguard of millennials.
As a vice president of a bank, what is there some structured things you guys are doing in terms of being able to cater to us Gen Zs? Because I was talking with a lady today, and she was talking about how boomers are saying Gen Zs and millennials are always lazy and all that.
Right.
Are you guys putting your ears to the ground and seeing how? Are you guys seeing what can help the Gen Zs or millennials be able to grow?
I think it's in part getting to know that and how they work and operate, because it is a little bit different.
Yes.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
will say our bank's been pretty good in that I work from home now. I think for some banks they've brought people back in, but they understand that some employees work really well from home if they're able to, if they're lucky enough to be able to have that's a way. And I work at different hours now. You know, we were emailing last night at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
Right.
before COVID. I usually wasn't doing that,
Yeah,
but my
exactly.
hours have become a little bit odder. And
Yes,
I'm working
yes.
at strange hours, and during the day I'm finding time for keeping the household afloat, making sure
Yes.
doing grocery shopping at
Right.
4 p.m.
Yes.
Right.
So it's getting to understand the generation. It's getting, because let's be honest, if we don't hire well, if we don't hire the next generation, we're out of
Oh
business.
yeah.
True.
Oh yeah.
True.
So it's finding what they're looking for from an employer and finding ways to then make sure they're getting access to it. And a lot of that, frankly, is getting access to other people in the bank, learning how they built their careers and how then you have a future at this bank. And this is how you can achieve that future.
Right.
Making sure they understand that. So there's training program we provide,
Yeah, okay.
internships that we give.
Okay.
And then we want to hire those interns. If they
Yeah.
work out, we want to find ways to get them plugged into the bank because they already
Right.
know the culture. And if they were hired as an intern, they probably are a good cultural fit for the bank.
Yes.
They like people, they're good with people, and they're representative of the communities that we work in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You have any more questions?
No, I'll sit here all day and talk.
But I mean, because I think another thing too is like there's been a boom in the entrepreneurship in Kansas City.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
I think Kansas City is like the future of entrepreneurship. I think they're like top 5 when it comes to fastest growing entrepreneurship cities in the U.S. So I don't know if are you guys playing a major role in that or?
We're trying to. So
Okay.
we play in different ways. Because if you came to me and said, hey, I got a new business and I need a loan, I'd say, well, let's talk.
Right.
Because when I give a loan, we need to have, we look at assets, cash flow, and personal wherewithal are 3 factors we're looking at. And we never want to give a business a loan if we don't think we can get paid back. Because
Right.
that's not good for us. It's not good for you.
Right.
Why would we do that?
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool about our bank is it's never a no. It's here's what we need to see to
Right.
get to where you want to be. And
Okay.
that's a fundamental change because it's more respectful of the person.
Exactly.
Saying, nope, sorry, go away.
Right.
You're not worth my time.
Yeah. Wow.
No, it's hey, let's talk and see. Here's what we would need to see for you to make sure you have access to capital. Banks only play a part of that because startups also know that it's more expensive, but sometimes friends and family getting money from investors,
Right,
venture
right.
capital. Casey Rise is doing a wonderful job here. We need more. We need more.
Right.
We need more successful business people. Also reinvesting in the community. And we've got a
Exactly.
few wonderful ones doing it right now, which is exciting. We need more.
Exactly.
We need more reinvestment in terms of equity, and then the banks making sure that they're tapped into the entrepreneurial scene.
Right.
Yes.
So that when they need it, I mean, and everyone needs a bank in some way. They need a place to
For
put
sure.
cash,
Yes.
not putting it on the mattress.
Yeah, you're not digging a hole.
But it's like, hey, so how do we get a line of credit? Well, it's like, let me see this and this, and we can start with 25,000, and
Right.
it's kind of like a training program. And then you're up to 100, and then you've got a fully working line of credit,
Yes,
and then you need to buy a building, and the bank knows you,
That's awesome.
so it's easier to extend credit when you know him. Because you're like,
Right.
it's Zeke,
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already know him. We have a
Yeah.
That
relationship. with him.
relationship. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I think it's rare to find what they call like a handshake. Back in the day, it's like, hey, you're good for it.
Yeah,
Right.
you're good for it. Yep. Yep.
Regulation makes it a little bit more challenging these days, but we want to make sure there's that kind of feel where, hey,
Comfortable.
I
Yeah.
know him. My credit officer knows
Yes.
Zeke. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Right.
How can we help him achieve his dreams and grow his
Right.
business? Because that's how we win as a bank, is we're making good people win.
Exactly. Awesome.
One question for
Yes.
me: what education resources do you guys offer?
Yeah, in terms of how to work with the bank or
Funding, more so.
Yeah, so often it's going to be going to our website. There's information there you can
Okay.
find about, what would you need to get a loan.
Right,
Or it's talking to a
right.
branch manager is one thing. We have an enterprise university course on that
Okay.
as well,
Cool, okay.
helping entrepreneurs understand, what would it look like
Yes.
to work with a bank and how does that work. We don't want it to be a mystery because that's
Right.
it needs to be easy. I think
Yes.
that's one of the things,
Access.
2020, access. And, why
Right.
is Amazon such a great company? Because I don't have to enter my information every time.
Exactly.
Like, there's no barriers. It's just so
Right.
easy.
Yeah.
Convenience.
Pow.
Convenience. And a bank that's doing it well is making banking so easy that it's like, why would I work with anyone else?
Right.
There's no barrier.
Exactly.
And we're getting better. Banks are slow to adopt technology in general. We're getting better. We need to get better as an institution and finding ways to employ technology to
Right.
make it easier to share information.
Yes. Yes.
Every client I have, if they've got a loan, we say, hey, we need to see your financials to make sure we understand how the business is doing and
Exactly.
that we understand your business.
Right.
Is it going to be submitted via email? Can you submit it through a portal? we need to make it easier. And I think there's solutions we're seeing from entrepreneurs often that are going to make it easier for banks to interact with their clients. And that'll be a trend that'll continue.
Yeah, awesome. Before we go to the game section, I want to ask you to give a plug of your social media or how they can get in contact with you and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm not a great Twitter follower. I'll be honest. I'm not a huge social media person, but I am on Twitter. I'm normally tweeting about like business or football. Yeah. And that's at Mark-Basola, but you can disregard that. LinkedIn is my primary jam. I'm on LinkedIn quite often, sharing, following FIREDUP KC, and great people like Zeke. So I'm on LinkedIn, Mark Basola, check me out. And,
awesome.
Awesome.
I'll have that right in the description. But I want us to do a game section. I want to ask you this. 5 top leaders in KC for you.
Top leaders. We talked about him earlier, but I'll start with Scott. Scott Havens, kind of the godfather of connections in Kansas City.
Wow.
I met him probably 2 years into being here, and his approach to business really changed the way I approach business, and that it was about how can I help other people win, that fundamental mind shift that doesn't always exist. So learning from him has been a wonderful resource. So he's first and foremost because he's affected me so personally. Let me think of some other business leaders that I'd like to highlight. Terry Dunn comes to mind. I've only met Terry once. He probably wouldn't pick me out of a crowd, but I'd mentioned successful business people who've redeployed capital into the community and have helped the community grow. And I'm on a board of a not-for-profit, Restart. We work with the homeless population. Our building is at 918 9th Street, downtown. It's across the highway, but J.E. Dunn's headquarters is right there. J.E. Dunn's always been a wonderful partner through their foundation, the organization, the employees. So the charitable minded of Terry and the business, that's carried over, and that's helped Restart, quite honestly. So Terry's wonderful.
2?
I got 2, so I need 3 more business leaders.
Making you think of your feet here.
Darn. I should have come more prepared for this one.
While you're thinking on that, let me ask you this: what are 3 top businesses for you in KC? 3 top businesses for you that you like what they're doing, where you go eat or where you go do whatever you do.
That'd be great.
You like what they're doing.
Well, I mean, they just won the Small Chamber Business of the Award, Business of the Year. But Charlie Hustle, it's a cool brand. Chase has done a wonderful job with that, repping KC.
Exactly.
So that's a great business that's homegrown, and I think it's going to continue to do wonderful things.
Great.
Some other cool businesses that you should know about. You know, there's so many good businesses that maybe you wouldn't interact with. That's a good one, though. There's so many. Here's the challenge. I'm like, I want to highlight.
That's true.
Highlight some of the best.
Right.
Another one that was highlighted by the Chamber and their Small Business Award is Pro Athlete up in the Northland.
Okay.
They were an early adopter of online commerce. They got into e-commerce back in the early 2000s, and they were selling baseball bats and gloves. But they got into that pretty early, and they've done a wonderful job of adapting through time. It's a great business, and employees, I will tell you, love working there.
Wow.
When they post for a position like a CFO, I think they get like 100 applications. It's something crazy.
Wow.
It's like they don't need to hire a recruiter; they're their own recruiter because they've created a wonderful work culture.
Yes.
Really neat business that probably can't be talked about enough.
Yes.
I'm trying to think within the construction scene. You know Josh Living, and what he does with Empowered. I mean, really neat in the blue collar world. He's built a really neat business. He's kind of a missionary for that business, but also for finding ways to get people into the blue collar trades.
Yes.
I mean, you've been on his podcast.
Speaking of Josh, because I went to his podcast, and at his building they have like a gym in the office, and I'm like, they are getting ripped while they're working, and I'm like,
get out that frustration.
Right? They're like pumping weights. I'm like, okay, I want to get with this.
Yeah, right.
But anyways, thank you again, Mark, for coming on the show. It's been phenomenal chat and just being able to kind of learn from you and kind of hear your perspective. I think that's important because conversation is important. We learn from each other just from talking and learning. So thank you again for coming. It's been an honor.
Pleasure to be here.
We're gonna close out the show with my co-host Z here.
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal on
this
episode.
This has been great.
Thank you guys for tuning in today. It's been another FIREDUP KC episode. And you know what to do. Go to YouTube at FIREDUP KC, Spotify, and then you can go to Roku at Kim Young TV. And you know who it is. It's your host, Zeke Wanganga, and I got my co-host,
Z. Hey, guys.
And you know what to do. Stay fired up, don't give up, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now. Pow.
Peace out.